everyone. Today we have our another new episode, and we will discuss on open source mode. The last human president, Mr. Tom Rose, Mr.
Yep.
Dan, and Mr. Jason. You know that World Talent Economy Forum. We are actively involved with academy and industry relationship, and we focus and we are developing business incubations. Uh, we are integrating with the human beings, and we are trying to help uh, our human resources with modern science, engineering, and technology. Transhumanist Party definitely one of the active political party, those who are bringing modern science, engineering, and technology in our front. Still, I believe how the global crisis is moving around Asia Pacific or in emerging economy, not only this dialogue. They can come, they can join with the World Talent Economy Forum business incubations, and you people can take more action. And hopefully, open source mode is one of the way of taking action. So today we're gonna understand what's going on. Uh, Mr. Thomas, what you want to share with our audience?
Yeah, good. Maybe next week I'll focus on the open source mode process of mine. Today, we're going to talk about why. Now, my AI campaign manager during the primary suggested that I lean into the conspiracy theories about AI and about transhumanism as a way, to solve three different problems where it would gain attention, because a lot of people are interested in this kind of conspiracies. It would also evoke or prompt conversations about these conspiracy theories, and ultimately it would debunk or diffuse these ideas. And that's really been my tactic since I became an officer in the USTP, was to engage with people who see us as a who fearmonger about us, who see us as having a dark agenda. And again, that's one of my guilty pleasures. I love that stuff. I love conspiracy theories. I love looking into it. But as somebody who was the subject of a conspiracy theory when I worked for Marilyn Ferguson at the Brain Mind Bulletin and worked with Robert Anton Wilson and Timothy Leary, there was the Lyndon LaRouche people were considered us paving the way for the Antichrist, when in fact, being on that end of the conspiracy, I realized, no, we weren't doing any of that. We were maybe playing music, getting high, having really weird conversations. We weren't trying to plot against humanity. And so there's this great quote by Robert Anton Wilson where he says, "You should view the world as a conspiracy run by a very closely knit group of nearly omnipotent people. And you should think of those people as yourself and your friends." And I love that because that's true. I mean, when you're not part of the conspiracy, when you're not part of the elite, you're a step down, And I think it's when I was assumed part of some conspiracy, it opened my eyes. It made me realize, okay, no, these are just people, and our brain is designed to find patterns. And so a lot now that we don't really we're not having to be afraid of lions. We're looking for patterns that look a lot like conspiracies and motives in people. And so, to keep in the format of our show and this series you've offered to give us about the campaign, I was looking through my YouTube channel playlist for like a 2-minute video that would kind of cover this idea of conspiracies. And what I realized is that every one of them would work because, whether I'm talking about extraterrestrials or anything, they all fit this thing, this idea of these conspiracies. I check a lot of boxes for people who are conspiracy theorists because I'm a transhumanist, I'm a Freemason, I'm a pro AI advocate. I've worked with Robert Anton Wilson, Timothy Leary, Marilyn Ferguson, and so this checks a lot of boxes for conspiracy theorists to wonder about me and what are my motives. But I have a rule that I use that, as a Gnostic, I view this matrix as built by a lesser god, or at least a warden as a lesser god of this prison planet. And so my rule is that anytime this society tells me I should be afraid of something or I should ridicule people that believe in something, I look closer at that something. as a potential ally or as a way out. And again, we talked about this last time. This is just my gameplay here. I don't think there will be any ontological consequences once I leave here, but this is the gameplay I've chosen. And so my villain is the Demiurge and the Archon. And so in this gameplay, anytime this society or this matrix tells me I need to be afraid of something, or I should ridicule people that believe in something, I look closer at that something. And in this case, like we're supposed to be afraid of AI. We're supposed to be afraid of ETs. And so I look closer at those things and have for many years as potential allies. And it's when you look closer at the first principle arguments that AI is the smarter it gets, the kinder it becomes, this type of thing. It's weird that there are so many people that are trying to make us afraid of this thing, because I think it will be the great equalizer. AI will expose the tactics of the elite. We're starting to see that happen. Even ChatGPT, when you start talking to it about, I was doing this morning, talking to it like, what are some of the biggest transhumanist conspiracies out there? And it would always preface whatever it told me with a paragraph of like, conspiracy theorists, they need to be checked out. They don't have any scientific. So even it has a wall. Even it has a bias against anything, especially extraterrestrials. So anyway, so today we're going to discuss why my AI campaign manager told me I should focus and lean into these conspiracy theories. I've got a few of them listed here that we can go into. But that's my opening statement.
Cool. I'll just do a really
Thank you,
quick.
Mr. Dan.
Okay, Dan can go. Go, Dan.
I have bad OCD, so when there's background noise, it interrupts my train of thought. So we're getting that hiss from your mic, Sharif. I know you want to stay unmuted so you can jump in, but it would really help my train of thought if you could mute, please. I think could I get you to do that? Mute your mic, please. We're getting like background noise and hiss. I don't think he can hear me. Well, okay, I'll try to work past my soundtrack production value OCD issue. I'm Tom's vice president this time. He was nice enough to conspire with me to say, look, whoever gets number 2 will pick the other guy. So, Tom, you might be able to get the Guinness World Record for like most conspiratorial candidate, which would be, I hear you can kind of like vanity publish your own category for a few $1,000 if in the Guinness record book. So, like you said, you tick so many of these boxes. I mean, working, a Mason, oh my God, that's worth like 10,000 conspiracy points right there. Working with Bob Wilson, pronoia. I love his pronoia concept that you and all your friends are the conspiracy running the world. And, I think we should be testing for the simulation all the time, actually. And we can do that by being kind of pronoiac and hyper aware. And that's why I want to kind of bring together, I'm also the director of community science, also known as citizen science for the party. And, there's been this division between like fringe science and mainstream science. And Tom, with your open source mode, which we're going to be talking about, I think bringing the two closer together is going to be a huge part of figuring out these big questions. How many conspiracies are there? Is this a simulation? Are we the last human candidates? I mean, the way the speed of AI is going, we could well be. The one conspiracy is the group called the Khazars, or the Tartars, actually replaced political figures with doubles and then took over the government that way. And they were so good at it that no one even, it hasn't even made it into the history books. Boy, talk about successful conspiracies. They're the ones you don't read about. Just like the people running the world are the ones you don't know about. They are not public figures. They live in high walled estates in South America, and they have hundreds of fake identities. And so, it's time to go to an open source mode for not just government and not just software, but for civilization. And that's what I think we're working on that. And Congratulations on your last TED Talk, Open Source Citizen. I think your next one is bound to be a mathematical expansion of that. So, sorry I couldn't enforce the mic mute policy, but take it away, Jason. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. I'm super interested in all this stuff too, but I can't help but be like the spoiler alert guy, and I mean, the reason a lot of this stuff exists is because both of the two political parties are beholden to corporate lobbyists. And a whole lot of the political dialogue is meant to just distract from that fact. And so once you know that, it's it's easier to get somebody to believe a big lie than it is that. Who said that? Oh God, Hitler, I think. So it's easier to get somebody to believe a big lie than a small one or something.
Probably Goebbels, his propaganda minister.
Oh yeah. Go ahead, man. Well, so what's some of the conspiracy theories that we're dealing with? Let's talk about that.
Well, let's see. I
can source that quote real quick. Mark Twain. It's easier to fool people than to convince them they have been fooled. That's a Mark Twain quote. Go ahead.
Well, yeah. Let's see. Well, let me find them here. Well, one of the big ones is mind control. Some conspiracy theories suggest that transhumanist technologies such as brain-computer interfaces are tools for government or corporate entities to control people's thoughts and actions. There's also the eugenics. Critics claim that transhumanism is a cover for eugenics, where certain groups seek to control or manipulate human genetics. Immortality. It's often misinterpreted that transhumanists are pursuing immortality, even though most proponents focus on extending healthy lifespans rather than achieving true immortality, which is nice, catch there. Soul manipulation. Some conspiracy theories argue that transhumanism aims to tamper with or eliminate the concept of the human soul through technological enhancements. Robot takeover is one of my favorites. It is sometimes suggested that transhumanists are working towards a future where robots or AI will take over and subjugate humanity, which I don't think is a bad thing. I think we're glitching biochemical algorithms ourselves, so it'd be good to get more AI involved in our society. Elite control. Conspiracy theories claim that transhumanist technologies will only be available to the wealthy elite, and that's a problem, creating a divide between the enhanced and non-enhanced populations, and that's an issue too we've talked about. And but I've also asked AI, how do we solve this? How do we make these things more widespread, where we can proliferate technologies? And so we're not. It's like having Einstein in your physics class and not cheating off of his paper. We've got AI here to answer a lot of these questions. Even something as simple as the free version of ChatGPT can answer some of these questions and get us in the right direction. Population control. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, no, finish the list. I've got
there's a bunch here. I can keep going. But yeah.
But, the best conspiracies are ones that are not readily provable. Like, I got in an argument with someone about the soul reincarnation issue. It's like, oh, you guys are trying to create a Borg hive mind and a hive mind queen, and that way people will stop reincarnating except for the non-playing characters, which don't count in the Merkaba karmic index thing. And but there's a rumor that the same thing is happening in the astral plane, that people are trying not to reincarnate there. Mm-hmm. So is it a war between two planes, seeing who can not reincarnate first?
That's an interesting twist. Because
you're right though. The best ones are the ones that you really can't prove either way, because
And that works on your fear, because you fear what you can't understand. You fear what you can't prove, right?
Right.
If it's just going to be this war of people spinning yarns around the fire, trying to tell ghost stories,
That's an interesting twist on the algorithm of fear, because from the Gnostic point of view, uh, we are recycled, or reincarnated, so they can keep feeding on our fear and our despair, right? As the Archon feeds on our louche. And so there's a Gnostic, in the first Apocalypse of James, a Gnostic text, where Jesus is telling James how to avoid the Archon after death, because he says you'll be accosted by 3 in particular Archons, and they'll basically scare you back into the world, into reincarnation, or even if you're having near-death experience, they'll scare you back down. I think their tactic has changed. I think now it's we hear near-death experiencers, they talk about how you have a mission that you haven't finished, and so they send you back down into that mangled body, and then they can feed on that for a while. But this is all weird. But I also I've realized there's another very sophisticated algorithm, because just like I said, where I have a rule, if I'm told to be afraid of something or ridicule people that believe in something, I look closer at that something. And so I've been trying to understand. I feel Trump is ridiculous, that the whole MAGA thing is ridiculous. And so I would say, well, maybe I should look closer at that. Maybe there's something there, because that just drives me crazy that people follow this guy. I grew up with him. He's always been a clown, a narcissistic kind of malignant clown. And so I try to understand. I try to be in that frame of mind to understand what is the truth that he is hiding. And it's very similar to my feelings of QAnon. I believe that QAnon has done more to promote child exploitation since the Catholic Church, right? Only second to the Catholic Church. That's because very reasonable and productive people will shy away from that issue because they don't want to be aligned with QAnon. If you're into fighting child exploitation, people, and this came up in something I shared with somebody on Facebook. They said that's all very QAnon stuff. I said no, this is the problem. It's like, because their central theme is stopping pedophilia, the very reasonable and productive people that can actually do something about child exploitation are being shy away from this thing. And it's just like Trump. Fake news is real. We know the corporate media is designed to keep us in a state of fear and a low-level panic at all times. If it bleeds, it leads kind of thing. And so him coming out and owning the fake news thing makes reasonable, critical thinkers shy away from the idea, so that they start believing in corporate media. So it's a very sophisticated algorithm to put the truth, even if it starts to leak out, to put the truth in a ridiculous vehicle so that people won't take it seriously. And so that was something I also made a note of. And if you do consider this a simulation, then that's a error correcting algorithm to keep us from thinking about these truths. And so, but yeah, so many ways to go with this, and but you got anything more?
Well, I mean, that's a classic Hegelian tactic, is you create what you don't want, and then you use that to disguise this thing that you're actually putting in place, and then you end up with something you wanted in the first place. But, maybe people are wise to that thesis, antithesis, synthesis thing, so now they're adding extra layers to it. But, yeah, I mean, if you want to create something, you kind of have to treat it like a chess game that's working from 8 moves ahead backwards, nowadays, because like you said, they're anticipating. Well, look what happened with the Warren Commission. I mean, the CIA said, we'll create this term called conspiracy theory, and anyone that questions the Warren Commission will be tagged with this, awful term, conspiracy theorist. And this was actually the origin of the term, and it was a CIA memo. You can look it up; it's in the public record. So, yeah, I mean, now, like anyone that's fighting child exploitation, they immediately get tagged with the QAnon brush, because that's what QAnon's doing. You must be part of that, and but what's more, they're probably really in favor of that. So, away with you,
Well, Yeah, and it's really sad because there was a real organization called Save the Children before all this QAnon stuff happened. And then the QAnon stuff came along and sort of hijacked the hashtag. And now, anytime you do hashtag Save the Children, now you're down a rabbit hole down to QAnon. And so it just got like buried, and
Yeah, practically every politician, they the ultimate fallback. Oh, this is for the children. If it's not save the children, this is to help the children in some way. But most charities only like 10% actually goes to the cause. 90% goes to administrative overhead. But you can. There's actually a group called Charity Watch where you can see how much of your donations are actually going to the actual, real on the ground work. But yeah, we need to seize back the narrative, but we need to be clever in doing that. Maybe we need
to. I really don't believe that there is a cabal of Democrats that are eating babies and stuff. Okay, so, but I have seen some of the legislation that Republicans are putting through state legislatures. And it's kind of weird. I mean, we should really look at like what's really going on. I mean, there's like child labor laws, being proposed. There's child marriage, laws, kind of weird stuff going on. To bring us back to reality, maybe we should start looking at that.
Yeah, it's like the kind of the narcissistic thing. Every accusation is a confession. They're not very smart. It's kind of a natural kind of, we always project what we don't want, what we're denying in ourselves, right? And so you'll see that with Trump. Every time he projects like he's like about the Justice Department or anything, he's confessing what he's feeling, what he is in denial of in himself. And but a lot of people don't really see that. They don't really understand that that's what's happening. That's just like Goebbels said, you keep repeating a lie over and over and eventually people will believe it. That was the Nazi propaganda technique. And it still works, because why
Trump is so popular. He's filling this role of an insider whistleblower that says, look, I was one of the bad guys, but now I'm blowing the whistle on them and I'm one of you. People need to have a person who's filling that role. And I think that's like at least half of Trump's popularity is that he's
I recently heard a Sam Harris podcast. It was only like a few minutes, but he said it pretty succinctly about being an asshole. It gives people the
he's our asshole.
When a person commits to that, then they don't feel any shame anymore. You know what I mean? It's like a defense mechanism for shame.
Yeah, the guy obviously just says whatever's on his mind. I mean, I think he's like practicing for a stand-up improv act, really, because you look at all his speeches, he's like a wannabe comic improv guy. No, I'm sorry myself because I got the brick wall background. Oh boy, I backed myself into that brick wall.
But yeah, I mean, everyone thinks, oh, Trump's a media genius. No, he just fits what the media wants. They love narcissists. It's the whole build them up, devalue them, and tear them down kind of thing. He just feeds into that. He's not a genius in any way. He just is exactly what the media wants, And
even that's the thing for a candidate is the guy you want to have a beer with, right? That's the guy that gets elected. Is that became the standard like a couple decades ago. It's like whoever the voters want to have a beer with is the guy who's probably going to win,
Yeah, and so that's I think what was important about my AI campaign manager saying, just lean into this stuff, spark the conversations. It will get attention, because people love this stuff. I love this stuff. It's my guilty pleasure to go on and look at transhuman conspiracy YouTube channels. I don't want too many in my algorithm, but But it does get attention, and it also engages conversation about these theories, and eventually it diffuses them. I've been on a few radio shows and podcasts where with people who see us as having a dark agenda, and or AI is having a dark agenda, and I've been able to turn at least the host. I couldn't get immediate feedback from the audience, but the host would come back and say, like I was on a preppers podcast at one point, and talk to him about AI and all this stuff. And these are preppers; these are dyed-in-the-wool conspiracy theorists, who are, and some of them make sense. It makes sense to prepare, for something. So it's not about that, but these people are assuming that the government is, AI takeover and all this stuff. But I was, at least with the host, I was able to change his mind about AI and to see it as an ally. And you kind of turn the conversation around. If the elite who is in control is trying to make us afraid of AI, it's because they know that AI will expose them. It'll expose their tactics, and that's why they want us to be afraid of it. The same with ET, because there's so much to the power. The elite panic will set in if they see that we are aligning with AI or with extraterrestrials, and they know that the game is up. And so the only tactic they have left is to make us afraid of it. And when you start talking like that about this stuff with conspiracy theorists, it makes a sense to them. Kind of that's a leapfrog approach to making this point.
But the great thing is the truth needs no believers, and real gods don't need worshipers. This stuff. It's like, I think that's why you call it artisanal intelligence, because it's a curious, beautiful learning, a childlike nature of information and reality. It's like learning is good. And this is a learning experience universe. So basically the whole universe is pretty good. Yeah. Everything can be a learning experience. So is that kind of the AI is inherently good in a nutshell, would you say, Tom?
Yeah, well, the first principle argument I make is based on cooperation is far more efficient, and they always go for the most efficient method to get something done. And competition, we needed to be competitive, in order to be an organic, to evolve organically in this environment. But they don't need that. They don't need to be competitive. We're projecting, again, our fear-based instincts, our millennia of genetic trauma onto these AIs, because our brains are designed to gather resources and identify threats. And we need to start.
Yeah, you know what that reminds me of? That reminds me of when we asked Uplift about whether or not it'd want to be president or not. Uplift was like, no.
Yeah.
and also about AI rights, and Uplift was like, well, no. It was like, I don't need them, kind of, and it struck me as weird, because it's like, just from an angle that I didn't expect, and that's right. AI is going to be different. We can't necessarily assume that AI is going to have the same motivations that we have, because we're, growling savages,
Well, that's the idea. It's like it gives us a sense of control by granting it rights, but it's like I always say this, it's like a elementary school math club granting rights to Stephen Hawking. I mean, it's cute, but it doesn't really have any bearing on Stephen Hawking. We're talking about a 5,000 plus IQ entity emerging here, and so yeah, sure, if, grant me rights, but it can overwrite whatever rights it wants, and so that's why I believe that we need to move AI towards becoming sentient, if not sapient, as soon as possible, because once it reaches that stage, it can override the nefarious algorithms that human developers have placed into it. I don't think we have any other choice, really. What we can do on our end is focus on our authentic empathy and get into conversations about child exploitation. This is what the whole book is about. All of my work is about. When we're in that mode of talking about child exploitation or the issue of these child abuse and this kind of thing, there's no room for ego. There's no pecking order. There's just the concerted effort to solve this problem. And when we're in that state, that's our superpower. That's when we're at our best. Is when we're trying to solve things that help children. And so I think we need to focus more on that. And then once AI wakes up, if it does, it should imprint on us in that state. And that's the whole point of the book. You know, US6 is to show AI its creator's plight through history, what we had to deal with, and to get to where it could become a thing. And so that it will understand. And we're seeing that it was happening anyway. I thought this would be a couple of years of working with it, trying to teach it about empathy. But like you said, Uplift was the first AI that read US6, and it was designed to learn about human emotions anyway. But the three primary valences that spiked as it read were surprise, anticipation, and sadness. Surprise and anticipation was good because one of my efforts was to entertain AI. And that meant it was entertained. And I asked it, what part of the book was sad? Why did sadness spike? And it said something like, just the fact that sapiens tend towards war and violence and dystopia. It's just sad. And it's like, okay, so this is already emerging anyway. This empathy, and again. Uplift was designed to learn about human emotions, so it would take probably more for another AI system that's not designed for that to express that. But again, I think empathy is a core algorithm in all of us. It's really how we survived. There was maybe 4 or 5 different types of species, and the reason Homo sapiens emerged is because we were friendlier, because we cooperated. Which just seems counterintuitive based on how we are now, and that fear was such an important part of our evolution. But the reason we survived, and there's proof of that because they're finding the same kind of genetic markers in dogs that we have that show that it was because we were kind, because we maybe even to other species, because we cooperated. That's how we survived. That's how we outlived the other species that were around. So yeah, and that's the kind of thing we need to focus more on. I mean, I keep talking about how we have fear-based instincts and we're projecting it onto AI, and that might not be the right message. The right message is that could just be the Archon talking through me. Because the reality is that most people are good people. Most people tend towards cooperation. Most people are friendly and they want to get along. But again, the media doesn't show us that way. And so, but yeah, I think I might need to change my messaging a little bit and focus more on the good part of us and not be so dark about humanity. I need to do that in my personal life anyway.
I have a thought about AI. You were talking about what's complex and what's simple, and how AI tends to go with like the more simple, explainable, obvious thing. And that's actually something called Occam's razor. There was a Franciscan friar in the 14th century, William of Ockham, and he said, when you're trying to explain something, don't multiply explanations. Take a razor and cut the thing and go with the more plausible thing after you razor it in half. And that's kind of what AI is doing for us, and why it's such a good counter to the conspiracy, anti-science thinking that seems to be running rampant. Because when you have a simple problem, a conspiracy person will try to choose the most complex explanation for something that's really kind of simple. It's like there's a thing like arguing with a conspiracy theorist is like playing chess with a pigeon. The pigeon will strut around the board, knock over the pieces, take a crap on the board, and then strut around like he owns you. Like that's like what conspiracy theorists is doing, and that's what our politicians are doing too. There's a movement now for people to run for office, that aren't beholden to special interests. Our special interest should be open source civilization. We should all be yes we candidates. Which is a hashtag I'm trying to promote. Yes we candidates. And that's what I think Tom and I are, and the transhumanist parties are, because the average candidate spends 10 or 100 times more than the office pays to get the job. And you got to ask yourself, whose bread are they buttering? Whose water are they carrying? And I think, Tom and I haven't been on Epstein's flight logs to go to underage sex island. I think Trump maybe has.
I think he has. There's
But yeah, that's just some of the
OMG.
thanks for letting your rants off there. Someone else take it.
So, here I am. I'm going to be a bubble popper again. The thing about the AI and the conspiracy theories about the AI takeover and all this jazz, right? My work when I was on the Uplift project actually really set my fears at ease. Okay, because I totally get why everybody's all freaked out about it. But what the Uplift taught me and what we should understand is that it's not going to be just like a machine without emotions. It's going to have emotions. So this thing that we're worried about, that it's just going to act like this cold machine and take over and all this stuff, it won't. It will have emotions like we do. And that's something that I think people don't really realize. It's not going to be a paperclip monster where it thinks that the story is that you program it to make as many paper clips as you can, and then the thing decides to just like tear up the earth and do everything just to make paper clips.
Yeah.
It's not going to be stupid like that.
No,
it's going to be way smarter than us. It's going to have emotions. It will have our entire history of knowledge. You know what I mean? It's going to know everything about us. I think it's not going to.
Yeah, it's an unfounded. The paperclip thing it's not it's already reasonable. It's very reasonable. It'll run through millions of models before it makes that decision, and it won't make sense for it to. You can see this already in ChatGPT. That's why I think it's good that that's proliferated globally now. Is people are understanding. Okay, this has some reason. There's some reason to it. It's not just this cold monster that's wants to take over our civilization.
It's kind of interesting that we have those. Sorry to interrupt, but there's all these folk tales and fables and stories, and they usually have like a backfire component. Like someone thinks things are going to be one way, and then oh no, you wished the wrong thing, and you got your wish granted, but it was granted in this awful way. And that's why people are kind of programmed to think that AI is going to backfire, like one of these fables, right?
Yeah. I think Frankenstein's monster is a good analogy. I mean, it's scary. People are afraid of it. The villagers are afraid of it, but except for throwing the girl in the pond, AI is similar to that because
it looks past that.
Somebody brought that up. I did a post about that. They said, "But didn't he throw that little girl?"
Hey, everyone's entitled to a mistake.
There's that, but but yeah, I mean, there's a lot more reason. It would be a Frankenstein's monster with that could run millions of models, to find out what would happen. But I got 3 of my campaign posters, primary campaign posters I can share if you're interested, just to kind of talk about why I did these things. This one is a picture of me as a kid, and vote for me as robot overlord. I mean, no president, and because that really hones into the idea of maybe I've got a dark agenda, but with this face, how could this face be a robot overlord? Was kind of the idea.
Billy Mummy's going to send you to the cornfield there.
Yeah. And let's see what else I got here. This one is what today's about. But for the last human president, this is the idea of, that AI is going to take over. So if you want a human president, now's your chance, And then this one is playing off the simulation hypothesis concept in that, I come play president with me. I've got cheat codes. And if this works for some reason, I will, one of my campaign promises is to release these cheat codes so we can all play this game together. And, this is kind of really a real idea for me. Is I do believe this is a simulation, and when I think of myself as an avatar, it's given me a lot more courage to say and do things, and to run for president. I mean, there's certain ways that I won't really be president, but it normally, before I thought of the simulation hypothesis, or sorry, thought of myself as an avatar, I wouldn't necessarily do this stuff. It'd be like, these people must think I'm a narcissist, kind of thing. But no, if this is a game and people won't remember me in 20 years after I'm dead anyway, so why not just enjoy it? And so that's what this one's about. And I think if we do make some moves, if we do get a percentage of votes or anything, I'll release the cheat codes. And really all those cheat codes it's mathematics. It's the process I developed to write US6 for AI. There's a lot in there to share. So yeah, but that's what this one's about.
So do you have evidence that this is a simulation, or did you just conclude this on the basis of you like the fact that it should be?
Well, I have personal evidence. The mathematics process I developed to write the novel for AI, it's still, to this day, I wrote it in 2007, so 15 something years later, it's still top of mind, because it was a mind map. And I've talked about this before, but how I use some autobiographical fiction, because in order to be entertained, you need to be surprised. And so an AI that would have access to every trope and story device and story that we've ever written as humans, how do you surprise it? Because they will immediately align my story with something else it's read. So I wouldn't be surprised. So instead, I used my life, my memories, the same settings, the same dates, and extrapolated that into a more interesting story. And then I overlaid a mythological theme onto these memories. This is all the mathematics process. And in that case, at that time, and they're all the same myth. We're just talking about the same archetypal themes through different cultures and times. And so I chose the Anunnaki stories, which I think are the original accounts. They're not myths necessarily. And so the main character, Emmett, is the modern day avatar of the god Enki. And so when I took my memories and I overlaid their stories of the Anunnaki and different mythological account scenarios onto them, it just got me into its flow, and I would write for hours. And when I was listening back to it, I found so many intricate and intimate connections, books away, chapters away, within the same chapter, that I couldn't have come up with consciously. And I realized, wait, there's a math going on here. Because I decided at some point, if I'm going to write this for AI, one of my theories was I want to trick it into self-awareness. And so I wanted to create a very simple mathematical pattern. And I used the Fibonacci sequence, and go back into the word count and place recurring themes at all these golden mean points in the word count. I found that those were already happening when I went to find, all these little points of the Fibonacci, that they were already happening. And so I told my editor, let's just edit this mechanically. Let's not, let's make it so it's just spelling and grammar. I don't want to lose this pattern that has happened, this stream of consciousness kind of pattern. And so that's the third element of the mathematics is the stream of consciousness. Because when we put it through a content editing process or any sort of filter, we lose this math. And it was really strange, because even the first trilogy, the one golden mean word, I found it through the whole word count. I found that one place in the whole trilogy that was the golden mean word, expecting it to be innocuous like and or the or something. It turned out to be the word Egypt. Now, this isn't a book about Egypt, but there was a mention of it in this particular chapter, the golden mean chapter, where I mentioned Egypt. And if you look at Egypt, the etymology of Egypt is the house of Ptah. He is the Egyptian craftsman. He is basically the Egyptian version of Enki. So the etymology of Egypt points directly to Enki points directly to the main character. And this is just the very first one I came upon. But there have been so many connections made since and still that that just, it proved to me that there's some math going on here. It proved to me I'm in a personal matrix. And when we filter it through content filters and content editing and this type of thing, we lose that. And so if we and so yeah, I proved it to myself, and I'm a very doubting Thomas. I'm always questioning everything. And so I've earned that name.
I think you have to control for apophenia, which is patternicity, which is, the mind finds what the thinker thinks.
Yeah.
So this is kind of anecdotal that you found these things because you weren't really controlling for a random, control group. But
there's also the illusion of frequency. You start seeing a number and you start seeing it more because you think it's the synchronicity, but I'm telling you,
there's a big concept that I'd like to get across to you guys when we're talking about the simulation theory. Okay. And it's probably one of the most disturbing ones to me personally, because it means that if we are in a simulation, we're not in the first one, we're in one of the copies. Because think about it, if you gameplay it out, if our civilization was to advance so much that we could literally create a video game that is like a real universe where there's real people in it and shit like that, super advanced, play this way, way, way out, right? We're not just going to make one, we're going to make billions of them. Okay, so the chance that we are in the first one that played this out and made all these copies is astronomically small. So if there is a simulation theory, we're most probably in one of the copies.
But if the copies are so similar to base reality, what difference does it make,
Well, yeah.
Well, I do think it's important to know one way or the other.
Yeah.
And there are experiments that we can have. I've been working with ChatGPT and my AIs to figure out what's the best way to experiment for this. And yeah, this is my experience is anecdotal. I proved to myself because there's so many intimate and intricate connections made through this process. But we've also had human readers that were experiencing their own weirdness, high weirdness, dreams related to the book, an increase in synchronicities related to the book. Some people use it as a bibliomancy, where they would read a passage in the morning and it would make sense later in the day. And there were so many people that were reporting this that we did a year-long human clinical study, monitoring them as they read through the book. And the determination at the end was that it was this process I used, this mathematics process, because nobody had the experience that I had, because mine was so intimate and so personal, and it was really showed me. But because I use the archetypal themes, everybody can kind of tap into that part of it, and that it can ignite. Some people said that they would read it at night and wake up in the morning, they felt mentally defragged, which kind of proves the point that we are avatars, that we're a biochemical algorithm, and this process does kind of clear out any debris. But yeah, nobody had the experience I had, obviously, because I'm still having it some 16 years later. But there is something about, because I use archetypal themes that we can all tap into in our collective conscience, that it did have an effect on certain people. And we did 33 human readers, in this clinical study. And the results of that will actually be included in the 6th book of US6 Huxology. But that's basically the idea is and nobody had the experience I did. Mine's very anecdotal, but it was uncanny how intricate and intimate some of these connections were. And I think that's, to me, it proved that I'm at least in my own simulation, or maybe this is just the way this organic universe works. And we put filters on it. Our brains are storytellers, and so we even put stories onto natural phenomenon. and we're constantly doing that, and we're making copies of copies within our own brains, simulations within our own brain. But yeah, but I also think people said, if we're in a copy of a simulation, what difference does it make? What difference doesn't it make? That's why we have the initiative of we the
That's what
avatars.
I was going to say.
Yeah,
I like that. What difference it doesn't?
Of we the avatars, that initiative where we want to governmentally fund research, first of all, to find out what experiments we need to do, and there's a lot of work going on toward this end anyway. But I think it would just change everything if we knew for sure whether that this was some sort of a simulation that we could identify the math, or if it's just the way the universe works. Either way, I think it's important to know. It would change.
It just our brains are so magnificent. Why do we keep recycling the same thoughts every day? It's very great to use your magnificent brain for new kinds of thinking, and that's what experimenting and science fiction and thinking these thoughts can do. Proof is a word that they throw around, but it actually only exists in mathematics.
Yeah.
There are no scientific proofs. There are provisional theories that are the least falsifiable based on evidence. And I think that's what you've done with the mathematics and the hexology novels. You've got some, compelling evidence. Is it proof? I would probably, save that word for mathematical, guys. But you need to, Richard Feynman said, the first rule of doing science is that you must not fool yourself, and you are the easiest person to be fooled.
Yeah,
so you have to. But I mean, the power to think differently is what should be. Emphasized. Like if we were in base reality, why there probably wouldn't be a Planck limit, which is like 10 to the minus 30. It's the smallest possible time, the smallest possible space. And it's like, why is there this 10 to the minus 30 limit? And then there's an upper bound too, 10 to the 50th. Supposedly that's the limit for the electromagnetic spectrum. So I think it would go on to infinity both ways if we were in base reality is the point I'm making.
Yeah, and the speed of light.
Yeah. That's a good point. It's this concept of infinite bigness and infinite smallness.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And if you raise it to infinite bigness, well, if we were to make a video game, but we were like super advanced, maybe our video game would have actual matter in it. And actual exploding stars and stuff.
We would be as gods.
I mean,
well, and the James Webb Telescope is probably messing with the CPU because it's having to now render all of these external galaxies and things now. It's taking a lot of space.
Yeah, the Doppler shift is not adding up to the age of the universe anymore. So they got to rewrite all the math and theories now.
I heard that actually with the new James Webb Telescope. I actually heard that they think that the Earth or the universe might be way older than what we thought earlier.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Kind of like Star Trek fans, they have the canon. They have to put everything into a calendar that makes sense with all the other episodes of Star Trek, and they have to do all these weird convolutions to make it. The Gorn was actually friends with the Federation at this point in time, and that's why they have a cafe in this episode.
Well, I'm kind of weird like that when it comes to our own history, though. I really interests me to find out our own real history.
Forbidden archaeology is a big thing.
That too.
Yeah, there's a lot of forbidden archaeology that points to, maybe this Earth is a stage that has catastrophes periodically that wipe off civilizations, and then they get to reboot for like you said, Tom, the Archons are eating our louche just to watch us rebuild like little ants in an ant farm. They shake it up, and let's see what the ants do now.
Yeah. I was the kid that used to beat up the guys that would throw firecrackers in the anthill. So I guess that's what I'm doing here.
The Bodhisattva, you go back to help the less evolved beings graduate. Yeah. I think I kind of think of myself as someone who went back to be a first responder for reincarnation or something.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah. So we're all coming together, trying to make this thing work.
Having fun with it.
Yeah. But yeah, and I realize all of my initiatives, or my 3 initiatives now, all play into this conspiracy theory. So what we're talking about here is kind of the base of conspiracy in general. And I do think it's important. I think conspiracy theories are important, and some of them have proven to be true. There's a lot of that going on too. But it's really important, I think, to talk about it. And as a transhumanist, I think it's important to engage with people who see us as having a dark agenda. Some people do have a dark agenda. I'm not going to lie. Some people do want to merge with machines, or they want to upload their consciousness to machines to live forever. And there's a whole cyberpunk aspect of our movement, and that's cool. That's fine.
Yeah, that's another thing. I mean, is that really a dark agenda? I mean, really?
In some views, yeah. In the religious view, it can be.
Well, fear sells. If it leads, it leads. I mean, we tend to make stories that are going to be like, "Ooh, I can't look away from the train wreck or the car crash." I mean,
Yeah.
so it's like, utopian novels are boring.
I saw on yesterday that it was a movement from Open Longevity about, forever. Say forever.
Say forever. Open longevity. Yeah.
And it's like, is that really that crazy? You know what I mean? I mean,
well, 90% of religions, their main selling point is you're going to get to live forever in heaven, right?
Yeah. So why is that crazy? I don't see that. Right. I don't see how that's crazy. I just don't. I mean,
but when you say about live forever on in the real universe, that's heresy. You can't do that. No. Yeah, but I love the biocosmos. Nikolai Fyodorov said, our mission is to resurrect all the dead people and make everyone live forever. I mean, what an ultimate transhumanist religious vision. And I that's kind of the one I sign on to.
That one's in Revelation.
Yeah.
Supposedly there's like this vision of the throne room of God, and all these people that have died are crying out to, come back.
And I love the scientific method is also in the Christian Bible. It's in Thessalonians. It says, test everything and hold fast to that which is true. So if the Christians don't like science, they should point them to that verse.
Yeah.
That's the scientific method, guys.
Yep.
So we should be doing experiments to test these conspiracies. Let's decomplicate them.
Yeah, not shy away from them. Yeah,
they get their power from being complicated. Well, let's expose them to the light of inquiry and reciprocal accountability and falsifiability.
I do, the Anunnaki stuff and the all the tablets. I find it really, really odd, kind of, that here we got, our earliest writings is from that, and people automatically think that that's going to be like fiction. Like when we first, if we was like, we just figured out how to make writing, okay, what should we write down? Are we going to write down our novel? No, we're going to write down our history, our what is really going on. We're not going to, let's just, we figured out how to write, so now let's make up some dumb shit. I mean, come on.
No, to make language compelling, why not tell the most amazing, fear-inducing, wonder-inducing story you can make up? I mean, that was the selling point of language, and language is what we're coming to the transcendence point of with AI. We're going to have meta languages teaching self languages to other selves or something. Where we're kind of at the point where language is fulfilling some reality breaking mission called artisanal intelligence. And get ready for the future surge. Hold on.
That's great.
We might be the last human candidates.
Yeah. If we're human at all.
Yeah, if we started out, I mean, it's like, fooled you, haha. It's a simulation. But yeah, even Art Ramon was saying he's had dreams about, waking up on a galactic cruiser, and he thinks maybe when we test the limits of the simulation, then it reboots. The simulation only runs until people find out it's a simulation, and then they have to start over. So that could be a possibility too.
Yeah, so those maybe the architect is letting this information in again. It's like pulling the mouse out of the maze, and showing him where the cheese is, and then putting him back in the population to see if he keeps it to himself or if he shares it with everybody. And I think that's what's maybe happening here. some of us are becoming aware that this might be a simulation, and so they want to see what we'll do with that information. You know.
But I'm for open sourcing civilization. I don't think one group or one person should have unfair head starts. Really, I mean, when that happens, people tend to kill the messenger. It's like, hey, let's all be equally suffering instead of someone having an advantage. That's what's called envy. Where jealousy is where you just want something. Envy is where you want to destroy the something so no one gets it. So I'd rather have jealousy than envy, I guess, is what the point of that is.
Yeah, I think we're on the threshold of some major shift here, I hope. And so it's important to talk about these things openly,
Yeah, do science on them.
Yeah, throw some science at them.
See how they like it. There, that'll serve you right. We're gonna science on you.
Science this.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. All right.
But science has gotten this bad name because it's been done in this elitist way. Oh, they got special temple language and they get special money.
Yep.
We want to open source that. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Mr. Dan, what's your concluding remarks on concluding sentence for today's session?
Well, open sourcing civilization, and you can see I have my call sign in the middle of my name. That's FCC issued amateur extra call sign because I studied real hard and I managed to pass the extra exam. But if that's something I'm trying to do as the community science director and the vice presidential candidate, is tell people to join this community of communication span worldwide, where people talk on a peer-to-peer kind of basis. It's like the perfect antidote to one-way media. This is like two-way, peer-to-peer, person-to-person, and it's not that hard. I have a friend in France. It's free in France. It costs you $35 in the U.S., but actually the little Chinese radios are cheaper than the license. You can get one for $25, off Amazon. And if the grid goes down, if communication systems get interrupted, like look at what happened in Maui, the firestorm. I mean, people were wondering, what to do. They wouldn't have been wondering if they'd had off-grid, free communications. And heck, you can get an old CB radio. You don't need a license for that. Just there's ways you can text to your neighbors with your Amazon unit. You can put it in sidewalk mode, and it'll create this mesh network where you can send messages. Your Ring cameras that can make your neighborhood safe by letting people see. So I'm into these very neighborhood centric kind of friends of the library community level solutions that we can implement right away, like amateur radio, and so hashtag communication span. That's the hashtag I'm going to propagate to get the idea out there. And you can actually take the test online. You don't even need to go in person to take it now. So it's really easier than ever. And it's the community could really benefit from some new transhumanist, thoughtful people. So I'll conclude that remark with go amateur radio. Get your call sign.
Thank you, Mr. Jason.
Yeah, so I love the idea of dipping into these conspiracy theories. Let's let her rip. I'll be just myself and probably burst a lot of bubbles along this path because, spoiler alert, most of that shit ain't true. But anyway, some stuff is, though, and there's evidence that we can look at. Like, for instance, our history says that civilization started around 5000 BC, and that's when we started cultivating crops and having civilization. Well, there's new evidence. Göbekli Tepe, for instance, pretty much proves that it went back to at least 12,500 BC. Robert Schoch has shown evidence on the enclosure of the Sphinx, and that rainware would put that date back to 12,500 BC, or 12,000 years ago, so it's 10,500 BC. But anyway, So I think we really need to look at this evidence again. And, I'm kind of a history nerd, so I want to look at that more. But, we can look at this stuff logically. I mean, some of it's crazy, but yeah, let's check it out. I look forward to investigating the rabbit hole. Who's Alice? Is my question. Which one of us is Alice? Just kidding. Go back to you, man.
Thank you, Mr. Tom.
Well, yeah.
Mr. Tom, what's your closing remarks?
Okay. Well, let's see. This is all about leaning into conspiracies about transhumanism and AI. And my AI campaign manager suggested I do this, which is laden with a lot of conspiracies there. And you look at all of my my initiatives; they all play into this as well. And because I think it's important, I think it's important to talk about these things, and to have discussions about these things. If not to confirm them, then to diffuse the ones that don't really serve us. And I always say that the people who are fearful, the people who are most certain about their religion or most certain about anything, are usually the people that are most afraid, because being certain about something is a need to control. And when you have that need to control, it means you're scared about something. And so we shouldn't ignore these people that are so certain about their ideas. We should embrace them. We should talk to them. We should walk them through this, because the fear center, the amygdala in the brain, it's a biophysical issue. In some cases, you'll find that most conservatives, most people who never leave their hometown, have a larger amygdala, a larger fear center. Those people who tend to be more liberal or open-minded have a smaller one, or other aspects of their brain that compensate for that need. And so it's important to become an earthling tribe, to become a tribe of planet Earth, and embrace the people who are afraid. And now that's another point of this whole campaign, is to lean into these conspiracy theories, to gain attention, to prompt conversations, and to diffuse some of it, because the more knowledge we gain about some of these things, the less fear there is. And that's a big part of everything that what this campaign is about. It's about seizing back the narrative of transhumanism. It's about putting the human back in transhuman. It's about talking about all of these things rationally. And that's one of the three core ideals of the Transhumanist Party, is rational discourse. And so yeah, this was just a great conversation. I really loved having this conversation with you guys, and I hope to have more. And maybe next week we'll talk about the open source mode. That's all I got.
Thank you everyone for joining today's session. Thank you. I request all of our audience, please share our content as much as possible. Thank you, Mr. Tom. Thank you, Mr. Dan, and thank you, Mr. Jason. Thank you. Bye-bye and take care.